On September 15, 2024, 4 police officers responded to a 911 call about a massive creature terrorizing campers at Beaver Creek. Within 5 minutes, all 4 officers were dead, their body cameras capturing every horrifying second as Bigfoot systematically hunted them down in the fog-shrouded wilderness. What the footage revealed about this creature's intelligence and brutality would become the darkest Bigfoot encounter in law enforcement history. That September evening, camper David Kellerman had reported a 9-foot-tall creature destroying vehicles with surgical precision, disabling escape routes with terrifying intelligence. The call ended with screams and the sound of metal being torn apart like paper. When the officers arrived at 11:52 p.m., they found a scene of systematic destruction that defied explanation. Vehicles had been flipped, twisted, and torn apart with impossible strength. A Ford F-150 lay completely upside down, its roof crushed flat against the ground with such force that the metal had been compressed to half its original thickness. A Honda Civic was twisted into an impossible configuration, with the front and rear sections rotated in opposite directions as if a giant had wrung it out like a wet towel. But it was the massive footprints that revealed the true horror. 22-inch bipedal tracks pressed 6 inches deep into the earth, forming perfect geometric patterns around each destroyed vehicle. The prints showed distinct toe impressions with remarkable detail, indicating a creature weighing well over 800 pounds. Bigfoot had performed ritual dances around its victims, marking its territory with deliberate precision. The forest was unnaturally silent. No insects, no birds, no mammals, just oppressive quiet that stretched for miles in every direction. This acoustic void felt deliberate, as if something was actively suppressing all sound within its domain. Bigfoot had claimed this territory, and everything else had fled in terror. At 11:58 p.m., Deputy Foster's body camera captured the first sighting. A massive silhouette moved between the trees approximately 100 yards from the campground's perimeter, 9 feet tall with shoulders so broad they filled the space between trunks. Its arms hung nearly to its knees, and it moved with a distinctive rolling gait that covered enormous distances with each stride. Bigfoot wasn't hiding. It wanted to be seen. It was announcing its presence, letting the officers know they were being hunted. The creature moved with purpose, stepping into clearings where their flashlights would catch its silhouette, then disappearing back into the forest before they could get a clear view. This was psychological warfare at its most primitive and effective. The creature began its intimidation campaign immediately. A deep, resonant howl echoed from multiple directions, a sound so powerful it made the officers' ears ring and seemed to vibrate through their bones. This wasn't any known animal. It was something with massive vocal cords and terrifying intelligence, announcing its intentions with deliberate malice. The howl seemed to come from everywhere at once, creating a disorienting effect that left the officers feeling surrounded and vulnerable. Then Bigfoot began throwing rocks. The first projectile, a basketball-sized stone, crashed into the trees above their heads with tremendous force, sending branches and debris raining down on the officers. The accuracy was remarkable, each throw placed precisely for maximum psychological impact without causing immediate injury. But there was something calculated about the bombardment. Bigfoot was testing their reactions, studying how they responded to different threats, learning their weaknesses. The rock throwing escalated rapidly in both frequency and intensity. Stones ranging from baseballs to massive boulders began raining down around the officer's position, each thrown with incredible accuracy from distances exceeding 100 yards. Bigfoot's ability to hurl 50-pound objects with pinpoint precision demonstrated strength and coordination that defied conventional understanding. The creature was not just strong. It possessed the tactical awareness to use projectiles as weapons of psychological warfare. The pattern of throws created a psychological maze, herding the officers toward the center of the campground, like sheep being driven to slaughter. Each projectile was placed with surgical precision, creating barriers that forced the officers to move in specific directions. Bigfoot was not just attacking, it was manipulating their movements, controlling the battlefield with the tactical awareness of a military strategist. Officer Martinez attempted a tactical withdrawal, recognizing that their position was becoming untenable. However, every attempt to move toward their vehicles was met with a barrage of thrown objects that forced them back into the campground's central clearing. The rocks came from multiple directions, suggesting Bigfoot was moving around the perimeter with incredible speed, maintaining constant pressure from all angles. Bigfoot had effectively trapped them, using nothing but rocks and superior positioning. The creature was hunting them with tactical intelligence that sent waves of primal terror through the experienced officers. This wasn't random animal aggression. It was a coordinated assault by something that understood human psychology and was using that knowledge to break their will. At 12:03 a.m., Bigfoot escalated its intimidation tactics by beginning to break trees. The sound of massive trunks snapping echoed through the forest like gunshots, each crack accompanied by the crash of falling timber. The officers watched in horror as the creature pushed over Douglas firs with trunk diameters exceeding 2 feet, using them as both weapons and psychological warfare. The systematic destruction created a symphony of terror that seemed designed to break their will before the final assault began. Each falling tree was placed with precision, creating barriers that further limited the officers' escape routes while demonstrating Bigfoot's overwhelming physical superiority. The sound alone was enough to shatter nerves, but the visual of massive trees being toppled like saplings drove home the hopelessness of their situation. Fallen trees began forming a rough circle around the campground, effectively creating a natural prison that showcased Bigfoot's tactical intelligence. The officers found themselves increasingly confined, with their options for movement becoming more limited with each passing minute. The creature was not just strong, it was smart enough to manipulate the environment to its advantage. Deputy Thompson fired warning shots into the air, hoping to deter the creature's advance. The gunshots echoed through the forest, but instead of frightening Bigfoot, they seemed to energize it. Bigfoot's response was immediate and terrifying, a roar that seemed to shake the ground itself, followed by a massive boulder that crashed into the earth less than 10 feet from Thompson's position. The message was clear. The creature wasn't intimidated by their weapons and could retaliate with deadly force. The boulder's placement was too precise to be coincidental. It was a warning shot delivered with marksman accuracy. The impact created a crater in the soft earth, demonstrating the tremendous force behind the throw and serving as a preview of what would happen if Bigfoot decided to aim directly at them. Bigfoot's vocalizations became more frequent and varied, ranging from deep howls to higher-pitched screams designed to disorient and terrify. The sounds came from multiple directions, suggesting the creature was moving with incredible speed around the perimeter of the campground. The sounds came from multiple directions, suggesting the creature was moving with incredible speed around the perimeter of the campground. Each vocalization carried a different message: threat, mockery, anticipation, as if Bigfoot was savoring their growing terror. The variety of sounds suggested a complex communication system, as if the creature was not just expressing rage, but conveying specific information about its intentions. The officers found themselves unable to predict where the next sound would come from, creating a constant state of anxiety that wore down their psychological defenses. At 12:05 a.m., Bigfoot's behavior shifted from intimidation to direct aggression. The rock throwing became more accurate and violent, with projectiles now aimed directly at the officers rather than around them. The creature had finished its psychological warfare and was ready to begin the systematic elimination. A baseball-sized stone struck Officer Martinez in the shoulder with enough force to spin him around and send him crashing to the ground. His agonized cry echoed through the campground as his shoulder was dislocated by the impact, the joint separating with an audible pop that his body camera's microphone picked up clearly. The precision of the throw suggested Bigfoot had deliberately chosen to wound rather than kill. It wanted them alive and conscious for what came next. The creature was not interested in quick deaths. It wanted to savor their terror and eliminate them one by one. Then the creature emerged from the tree line with a deafening roar that seemed to vibrate through the officer's bones. Standing fully upright at nearly 10 feet in height, covered in dark matted hair, Bigfoot displayed its massive frame in a show of dominance before beginning its methodical hunt. The creature's eyes reflected their flashlight beams with an intelligence that was unmistakably aware and calculating, but now filled with territorial rage and something else, anticipation, as if it had been looking forward to this moment of systematic execution. The creature's appearance was more terrifying than anything the officers had imagined. Its face was a grotesque mixture of human and ape features, with a pronounced brow ridge that cast deep shadows over eyes that glowed with malevolent intelligence. Its mouth was filled with teeth that were too large and too sharp for any herbivore, suggesting a diet that included meat, possibly human meat. Bigfoot's speed was beyond anything the officers had anticipated. It covered the 50 yards between them in less than 4 seconds, moving with the fluid grace of a pursuit predator while hurling rocks with deadly accuracy. The creature's gait was unlike anything in the animal kingdom, a combination of human bipedalism and ape-like power that allowed it to maintain incredible speed while remaining perfectly balanced. But Bigfoot had a plan. It wasn't going to kill them all at once. It was going to hunt them individually, savoring each death while forcing the others to watch. The creature had identified Martinez as its first target, the wounded officer who posed the least immediate threat. A softball-sized stone struck Thompson in the chest, the impact audible as ribs cracked under the tremendous force. The projectile hit with such power that it drove the air from his lungs and sent him staggering backward, but this was merely to incapacitate him temporarily. Bigfoot wanted Thompson alive to witness what happened to his colleagues. The creature reached Martinez first. Bigfoot grabbed the injured officer by his tactical vest and lifted him off the ground with one massive hand, demonstrating strength that exceeded human comprehension. Martinez's body camera captured his terrified face as he found himself suspended in the air, completely helpless against the creature's overwhelming physical dominance. Bigfoot's grip was deliberate, calculated. It could have crushed him instantly, but instead held him aloft, studying his terror with ancient, intelligent eyes. The creature's face was inches from Martinez's own, and the officer could smell its breath, a mixture of decay and something else, something that suggested a diet of things that should not be eaten. For a moment that felt like an eternity. Martinez hung suspended in the creature's grasp, his feet dangling helplessly above the ground. His camera captured Bigfoot's face in horrifying detail. The intelligence behind those dark eyes, the deliberate nature of its actions, the way it seemed to savor his fear. The creature's expression was almost human in its cruelty, suggesting a level of sadistic pleasure that went far beyond animal instinct. The other officers watched in horror as Bigfoot slowly turned Martinez's body, ensuring they could all see their colleague's terrified face. The creature was making a statement. This is what happens when you enter my territory. This is the fate that awaits each of you. Then, with casual brutality that spoke of countless similar encounters, Bigfoot hurled him against a nearby Douglas fir with tremendous force. The impact was captured on multiple cameras, the sickening crack of Martinez's spine snapping, the way his body crumpled against the massive trunk like a broken doll. The sound of bones breaking was clearly audible, a wet, final noise that would haunt anyone who heard the recording. Martinez's camera went dark, but the audio continued for several more seconds, capturing his final, labored breaths before silence claimed him. The sounds were barely human, gasps and whimpers that spoke of unimaginable pain and the terrible knowledge that death was coming. Bigfoot stood over Martinez's broken body for several seconds, as if savoring the moment of victory. Then it slowly turned its attention to the remaining 3 officers, its eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. The creature had claimed its first victim, and now it was ready to select its next target. Deputy Chen attempted to flank Bigfoot while it was focused on Martinez's corpse, but her movement was detected immediately. The creature's head snapped toward her with predatory focus, and those intelligent eyes locked onto hers across the destroyed campground. For a split second, Chen saw her own death reflected in that ancient gaze, saw Bigfoot calculating angles, distances, the precise force needed to eliminate her threat. The creature's reaction time was inhuman, suggesting senses that operated far beyond normal parameters. It had detected her movement despite being focused on Martinez, indicating a level of situational awareness that exceeded anything in the animal kingdom. Bigfoot had chosen Chen as its second victim. Then it began hurling rocks with machine-like precision, each projectile aimed with surgical accuracy specifically at Chen while ignoring the other officers. The first stone shattered Chen's left arm, the bone splintering with an audible crack that her body camera's microphone picked up clearly. The impact was so severe that fragments of bone pierced through her uniform, creating dark stains that spread rapidly across the fabric. She screamed, a sound of pure agony that echoed through the fog-shrouded forest and seemed to energize the creature further. The second projectile struck her in the abdomen with enough force to double her over, driving the air from her lungs and sending her stumbling backward. The impact ruptured internal organs, causing massive internal bleeding that would have been fatal, even with immediate medical attention. But it was the third stone that sealed her fate, a baseball-sized rock that caught her in the temple as she fell, the impact producing a wet, final sound that would haunt the investigators who later reviewed the footage. The precision of the throw was remarkable, suggesting that Bigfoot had calculated the exact trajectory needed to deliver a killing blow to a moving target. Chen's camera captured her final moments in stark detail. Bigfoot's satisfied expression, the way it paused to observe her death before turning its attention to the remaining officers. The creature's face showed unmistakable pleasure at her suffering, confirming that this was not simple territorial defense, but something far more sinister. 2 down, 2 to go. Bigfoot's methodical approach was becoming clear. It was systematically eliminating each officer individually, forcing the survivors to watch their colleagues die while knowing their own turn was coming. The psychological torture was as deliberate as the physical violence. Officer Thompson, despite his broken ribs and the growing certainty of his own doom, continued firing at Bigfoot in a desperate attempt to stop its rampage. His marksmanship was exemplary even under extreme duress, with multiple hits to the creature's torso producing dark stains in its fur that indicated successful penetration. The bullets were clearly finding their mark, but Bigfoot's reaction suggested that conventional ammunition was insufficient to stop something of its size and apparent durability. However, Bigfoot's reaction to gunfire was not retreat, but increased fury, as if the pain only served to enrage it further. The creature's roars became more frequent and violent, and its movements took on a frenzied quality that suggested the wounds were causing significant discomfort, but not enough damage to incapacitate it. More importantly, Thompson's aggressive response had marked him as the next target. Thompson's final stand was captured in excruciating detail by his body camera. Each muzzle flash illuminated Bigfoot's advancing form, revealing the terrible intelligence in its eyes, the way it moved with purpose despite the bullets tearing into its flesh. The creature's roar of rage shook the very ground as it charged directly at Thompson, having selected him as victim number 3. Thompson's camera recorded his own terrified breathing, the desperate fumbling as he tried to reload, the moment of absolute terror when he realized he wouldn't make it in time. His hands shook so violently that he dropped the magazine, watching helplessly as his last hope of defense clattered away into the darkness. Bigfoot struck Thompson with a backhand blow that sent him flying through the air like a broken doll, his body spinning helplessly before crashing into the remains of the destroyed RV. His body camera spun wildly, capturing disorienting flashes of sky, trees, and Bigfoot's triumphant form before he crashed into the twisted metal with bone-crushing force. The impact was so severe that it crushed his chest cavity, causing massive internal trauma that would have killed him instantly. Thompson's final transmission was barely audible, broken words about family, about messages that would never be delivered. The words were cut short as Bigfoot's shadow fell across him, and his camera went dark forever. The creature stood over Thompson's broken body, breathing heavily from the exertion, but clearly satisfied with its work. 3 officers down, 1 remaining. Bigfoot slowly turned its massive head toward Rookie Deputy Foster, who now found herself completely alone with a creature that had just demonstrated its ability to eliminate experienced officers with casual ease. Foster's terror was evident as she backed away from the advancing creature, her weapon trained on Bigfoot's massive form, despite having witnessed the futility of conventional firearms against such an opponent. The creature seemed to enjoy her fear, moving slowly and deliberately, savoring the moment of complete dominance. Its approach was different now, less urgent, more methodical, as if it wanted to prolong the encounter and extract maximum terror from its final victim. Bigfoot's approach to Foster was different from its treatment of the other officers. Rather than immediate violence, it seemed to study her, tilting its massive head as if curious about her youth, her terror, her desperate courage. For several seconds, predator and prey regarded each other across the destroyed campground, the creature's intelligence evident in its calculating gaze. Its eyes held an ancient malevolence that spoke of countless similar encounters, of humans who had wandered too deep into its domain and never returned. The creature's expression suggested not just hunger or territorial aggression, but something far more disturbing. A genuine enjoyment of human suffering that bordered on the sadistic. The creature was in no hurry now. It had eliminated 3 trained officers and had all the time in the world to savor its final kill. Foster represented the culmination of its hunt, the last piece of its systematic execution of the entire team. Foster's body camera captured every terrifying detail of her final moments. Bigfoot's massive hand reaching for her, fingers spread wide enough to encompass her entire torso. Her desperate attempt to dodge, the futile scramble backward that only delayed the inevitable. The moment when those massive fingers closed around her with crushing force, lifting her off the ground as easily as a child might pick up a doll. Foster's camera recorded her final moments in horrifying clarity. Bigfoot's face inches from her own, studying her terror with those ancient, intelligent eyes. She could smell its breath, feel the heat radiating from its massive form, see her own reflection in those dark pupils that held no mercy. The creature's grip tightened slowly, deliberately, as if it wanted to savor every second of her suffering. Her final words were barely audible above her labored breathing, a whispered prayer that would be the last human sound recorded in that cursed place. Then Bigfoot's grip tightened, and Foster's camera captured the moment when the light faded from her eyes, her body going limp in the creature's massive hands. Bigfoot's final actions demonstrated both its intelligence and its territorial nature. Rather than simply discarding the bodies, it carried each officer to the center of the campground and positioned them in a rough circle around the central fire pit. The positioning appeared deliberate, as if Bigfoot was making a statement about its dominance over this territory. The arrangement suggested ritualistic behavior that went beyond simple predation, indicating a level of symbolic thinking that challenged conventional understanding of animal intelligence. The bodies were placed with care, almost reverently, as if the creature was creating some kind of monument to its systematic victory over the human intruders. The creature stood over its victims for several minutes as if admiring its work. It had successfully hunted and killed 4 armed, trained law enforcement officers one by one, demonstrating not just overwhelming physical superiority, but tactical intelligence that exceeded anything in the known animal kingdom. Then it let out one final triumphant roar that echoed across the mountains before disappearing back into the forest, leaving behind a scene of systematic destruction and death. When backup units arrived at 12:45 a.m., they found the 4 officers positioned in the center of the clearing, their bodies arranged with precision that suggested intelligence and purpose rather than random violence. The memory cards from the body cameras were immediately secured and classified at the highest levels of government secrecy. The footage was too disturbing, too revealing of something that challenged the very foundations of what authorities believed possible. Federal agents arrived within hours, seizing all evidence and imposing strict non-disclosure agreements on every person who had witnessed the scene. The body camera recordings were locked away in classified archives, deemed too dangerous for public consumption. What the classified footage documented was a creature operating in our national forests with capabilities that far exceeded anything in the known animal kingdom. 4 experienced officers, equipped with modern weapons and training, had been systematically eliminated, one by something that possessed not only overwhelming physical capabilities, but the intelligence to understand human tactics and counter them effectively. Bigfoot had demonstrated tactical awareness, psychological warfare, and ritualistic behavior that suggested an intelligence far beyond any known primate. The creature had herded the officers like prey, isolated them from escape routes, and eliminated them individually with methodical precision. Each kill was different, as if Bigfoot was experimenting with different methods of execution, learning and adapting its techniques with each victim. The creature's ability to throw objects with pinpoint accuracy, its understanding of human psychology, and its deliberate prolonging of the officer's terror suggested something that had been studying human behavior for far longer than anyone realized. Bigfoot wasn't just a physical threat, it was an intelligent predator that understood how to break human will before delivering the killing blow, one victim at a time. Most disturbing was the creature's apparent enjoyment of the hunt. The classified footage showed clear evidence that Bigfoot was savoring the officers' terror, taking pleasure in their helplessness as it systematically eliminated them. This wasn't territorial defense or simple predation. It was something far more sinister, suggesting a creature that hunted humans not just for survival, but for sport, methodically killing each victim while forcing the others to watch. The systematic nature of the attack, the psychological warfare, and the ritualistic arrangement of the bodies all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Bigfoot had done this before. The creature's tactics were too refined, too practiced to be the result of a single encounter. Somewhere in the wilderness, other victims lay arranged in similar patterns, testament to a predator that had been perfecting its hunting techniques on human prey, learning to kill more efficiently with each encounter.